The day I received the lab results confirming my wife's diagnosis, she unexpectedly installed a small, white security camera in the corner of our master bedroom, its unblinking lens aimed directly at our bed. Later that same night, as I lay awake, I overheard her whispering into her phone on the balcony, her voice a low, urgent murmur against the city's hum. "I'm not letting him touch me again," she swore, a promise laced with a strange fervor. "I've sent you all the account information. You can log in and check at any time. I've decided to stay faithful for love." Hearing those words, a torrent of emotions washed over me, a confusing mix of disbelief and a nascent, cold anger. I saw her face through the sliding glass door, her features usually so composed, now flushed with an intense, unfamiliar passion. In that moment, I quietly walked back to my study, took the crisp sheet of paper detailing her medical fate, and fed it into the shredder, its quiet whirring a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Stay loyal for love. It was a sentiment I could understand, but the love she was referring to clearly wasn't for me. When the diagnosis of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis landed on my desk, attached to Clara's medical report, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. I felt my knees buckle, and I had to grip the edge of my desk to keep from falling. It had all started 3 months prior, when Clara, my wife, took a nasty fall during a solo hike and injured herself. During her subsequent stay in the hospital, I had insisted on a comprehensive physical examination, mostly for my own peace of mind. Now, this was the result. ALS, the doctor had explained with a somber tone, has no known cure. Its progression can only be slowed with medication, but the eventual outcome is irreversible and devastating. I could see the profound sympathy in his eyes as he spoke, a look I was beginning to dread. Clara was the embodiment of a strong, independent woman. She was beautiful and brilliant, yet she carried herself without a hint of fragility. There was a graceful charm in her every movement, a quiet confidence that was captivating. As a highly respected divorce lawyer, she was renowned in her field for being exceptionally intelligent, rational, and cool-headed, a true legend among her peers. In her private life, she was just as disciplined and simple. She was passionate about physical fitness and loved hiking through challenging trails, always placing a high value on living a quality, well-ordered life. I simply couldn't reconcile the image of this vibrant, capable woman with the cruel future the diagnosis promised, one where she would eventually become unable to care for herself, trapped within her own body. I spent hours sitting on a bench by a busy street, watching the anonymous flow of people pass by, their lives continuing uninterrupted, while mine had just shattered. After a long, silent vigil, I slowly pushed myself to my feet. I had made up my mind. As a husband, as her partner, it was my duty to face this with her. We were a family, and we would confront this together. No matter what she became, no matter how difficult things got, I would be there by her side, along with our son. When I finally arrived home, darkness had already settled over the city. Our son, Sam, was in his room, quietly absorbed in a game of Go. At just 7 years old, he was already a level 5 player, a prodigy who had once been interviewed for a local news segment. "Have you eaten?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion that I was desperately trying to hold back. "Yeah," he replied without looking up, his focus entirely on the black and white stones on the board. "The nanny made ribs and lotus root soup today." His gaze remained fixed on the game. "Where's Mom?" I asked. "Out for a run," he said. Sam has a quiet, contemplative nature and a directness that mirrors both Clara and me. 2 hours later, as I was still wrestling with how to break the devastating news to Clara, she returned. She was dressed in a comfortable sweatshirt and yoga pants, looking invigorated and full of life. A pang of worry shot through me. "It's freezing outside," I said, my concern genuine. "Why are you wearing so little?" The doctor had been clear. ALS patients must avoid getting cold, as it can accelerate the progression of the disease. "It's just how I run," Clara said dismissively, her tone flat. Without another word, she pulled a small camera from her bag and began setting it up on the bookshelf opposite our bed. I was completely baffled. "Why are you installing a camera in here?" I asked. "There have been some thefts in the neighborhood recently," she explained calmly. "It's safer to have a monitor." I hesitated, feeling a growing unease. "Aren't you worried about our privacy?" Clara was fiercely protective of her privacy. This felt completely out of character. She glanced at me, a faint, condescending chuckle escaping her lips. "Privacy? Who would possibly be interested in yours?" Her words stung, but I let them go, attributing them to the stress of her work. I buried the turbulent emotions swirling inside me and said nothing more. Before we went to sleep, she positioned herself on the far edge of the bed, her back turned to me, a clear and silent signal that she wanted to be left alone. I assumed she was exhausted. She had just concluded a high-profile, contentious divorce case for a wealthy client and deserved a break. But sleep wouldn't come. Halfway through the night, I found myself wide awake, staring into the darkness. I reached out, only to find the space beside me empty. Clara was gone. A cold wave of anxiety washed over me. I got out of bed and went looking for her, finding her on the balcony, clad only in a thin nightgown, speaking softly into her phone. The wind whipped around her, and I quickly grabbed a coat from the closet to bring to her. But as I approached the glass door, I heard her words, carried on the frigid air. "I'm not letting him touch me again," she whispered. Her voice made me freeze in my tracks. "I've sent the account and password. You can log in and check any time. I've decided to stay loyal for love." Through the reflective surface of the glass, I watched my wife, a woman I thought I knew so well. This person, who always presented herself to the world as elegant, proud, and perfectly composed, was now overflowing with a raw, unguarded emotion I had never witnessed before. The more I listened, the more she seemed like a stranger. The Clara I knew behind closed doors had always been openly passionate with me, a stark contrast to her dignified public persona. At night, with her defenses down, the immense stress she carried from her demanding career would surface. As the city's top female divorce lawyer, she had become meticulous, precise, and emotionally guarded, but she had always shown her vulnerable side to me. We had met in graduate school. She, the proud and brilliant woman, had pursued me. It was only around me that she would blush and show a shy, endearing side, a quality that had quickly drawn me in. After we graduated, I took a stable position at the university, teaching psychology, while she climbed the ladder of the legal world, transitioning from a salaried associate to a full partner at a prestigious firm, becoming a distinguished lawyer who earned millions. Our personalities were similar in many ways. We were both calm, rational, and practical. People who valued a quality life over fleeting whims. While I had chosen a stable job that allowed me to balance family and career, she had skyrocketed in her field. Our 8 years of marriage had been built on a foundation of mutual respect. We thrived, living in a spacious $1-million home with a genius son everyone admired. On the surface, we had a life that was the envy of many. But about 6 months ago, things had begun to shift. She had always been a dedicated runner, but her routine changed. It used to be that she would leave at 8 in the evening and be back by 9, followed by 30 minutes of family time. That schedule never wavered. Then, 6 months ago, she started leaving at 7 and not returning until 10, looking utterly exhausted and canceling our time together. When I asked why her runs had gotten so much longer, she explained calmly that when she hit a roadblock in a case, being outside helped clear her mind. "Mental work is more tiring than physical work sometimes," she'd said. I accepted her explanation, but then gradually she lost all interest in physical intimacy. She stopped initiating, and on the few occasions I tried, she would cite exhaustion and turn away. I attributed it all to the overwhelming stress from her job and worried about her deeply. It was after her fall and subsequent hospitalization that I had urged her to take a break from work to recover and insisted on the comprehensive checkup. Now, it was painfully clear that things were not as I had imagined. Back in bed, I stared at the ceiling in the dark, my mind replaying her recent words, her unfamiliar expressions. It all felt alien, unreal. Despite the crushing blows I had received that day, a strange sense of curiosity began to overshadow my sadness and anger. I was intensely curious about the person on the other end of that phone call, the one who was stirring up emotions in Clara that I thought had long been dormant. I'm a straightforward person by nature, so the next night I took a direct approach. I slipped a mild sleeping pill into her nightly glass of milk. Once she was in a deep sleep, I gently used her fingertip to unlock her phone. I searched through her call log from the previous night. It took me a moment, but I recognized the number. I had seen it before. 3 months ago, after Clara was injured on her hike and taken to the hospital, I had asked the police for the contact information of the person who found her and called for help. I wanted to express my gratitude. The police gave me this exact number. My memory for numbers is excellent. There was no way I was mistaken. I had even dialed the number right there in front of the officer. A man answered, his voice calm and kind. He told me there was no need to meet or thank him, that it was simply what any decent person would have done. After I hung up, the officer chuckled and mentioned that some people in that situation might ask for a reward, but not this guy. When I asked why, the officer explained that he had recognized the man during routine questioning. He had once been featured in a local news story as a model husband. He had faced terrible luck on his wedding day when his new wife suffered a sudden illness and became paralyzed, leaving behind a 7-year-old son from a previous marriage. For 13 long years, this man had cared for her and raised the boy as his own. His wife had passed away the previous year, and now he ran a small stall at the entrance of a nearby park, selling lamb offal soup. A man with that kind of character, the officer had said, wouldn't accept a simple token of thanks. I was deeply touched at the time, thinking how fortunate my wife was to have been found by such a person. Now, late at night, I sat with her phone for a long time before navigating to her photo album. Clara was either incredibly confident in her own discretion or trusted me completely because she hadn't hidden a thing. My screen filled with dozens of photos of the same man. Under a starry night sky, a small food stand glowed warmly, steam rising from a large pot. The man's features were sharp and defined, his smile warm and inviting. In the photos, he was either skillfully chopping ingredients, serving bowls of soup, or chatting amiably with customers. Each picture exuded a cozy, comforting atmosphere, capturing the simple, unadorned pleasures of life. The collection of photos spanned half a year, documenting the changing seasons from short sleeves to thick winter coats. On the third day, I went to the park and found the stall that sold lamb offal soup. From a distance, I watched the man, whose name I now knew was Mark, squatting by a flower bed, speaking softly to a stray kitten. 2 women waiting at his stall were joking with each other. "Mark only cares about these cats and dogs," one said. "He might as well not even try to make money." Mark stood up quickly, apologizing with a gentle tone. "I'm sorry. I felt bad for them, and I didn't notice you were waiting." The other woman waved her hand dismissively. You're doing a kind deed. These stray animals know you have a soft heart, so they all come to you for food. It's a beautiful thing to watch. After they collected their orders and left, I approached the stall. "A bowl of lamb offal soup, please," I said. Mark nodded and served it to me with a smile. Through the swirling steam rising from the bowl, I studied him. He looked to be around 35 or 36, tall and handsome. His clothes were modest but impeccably clean. His whole demeanor was warm and amiable, radiating the kind of reliable charm that comes with maturity. "Friend, it's your first time here, isn't it?" he said. "I'll add some extra lamb lung for you to try." I sat down and slowly sipped the hot soup, my mind wrestling with a single, persistent question. Would someone like Mark, with his history and apparent character, really get involved with a married woman? As I pondered this, Mark came and sat down across from me. I was startled. He smiled warmly, his bright, clear eyes fixed on mine. "You're Clara's husband, right?" I put my spoon down, meeting his direct gaze. "You recognize me?" He smiled again. "I have a good memory. I saw your picture once on Clara's phone." I frowned, remembering. The lock screen on Clara's old phone used to be a photo of me and our son, Sam. She had changed it to a generic landscape photo about 6 months ago. He lowered his eyes, remaining silent for a few seconds before speaking in a calm, measured voice. "I know why you're here. You probably think there's something going on between Clara and me, don't you?" I stayed silent. His eyes were sincere as he continued. "There's nothing. Clara and I are just friends. She started coming here for soup after her evening runs. I noticed that she seemed down, like she was under a lot of stress, so I tried to cheer her up. It turns out she completely misunderstood my intentions. She started saying strange things. I mean, she has a family. Even if she didn't, why would a woman like her ever be interested in someone like me? I told her it was just a fleeting fancy, but she wouldn't listen. She became more and more intense, calling me with these wild ideas. Honestly, if you hadn't come to talk to me today, I was planning on reaching out to you. Clara must be under an immense amount of pressure to be acting so irrationally. As her husband, you should really try to help her more." I looked down at the thin film of oil slowly forming on the surface of my soup. "So, what you're saying is that this was all Clara's doing, and you've been actively trying to turn her down?" Mark sighed and nodded slowly. I looked up at him, my voice steady. "And the camera she installed in our bedroom, the one positioned for you to see us, was that also her impulsive idea?" Mark froze for a second, then said, "I scolded her for that. It's ridiculous." I continued, my tone hardening. "And the time you two went hiking together and she fell, was that also her forcing you against your will?" Mark's pupils dilated as he stood up abruptly. "Hiking? I don't know what you're talking about." I looked at him coldly. "You said you have a good memory. I called you to thank you for helping her that day, and you've already forgotten?" Just then, a customer called out, wanting a container of soup to go. Mark pressed his lips together, moving stiffly to serve the order. As he reached for the ladle, his movements were clumsy, and he knocked over the large pot, sending scalding soup splashing everywhere. Mark cried out in pain as the hot liquid hit him. The customer dodged the spill, cursed under his breath, and left grumbling. I surveyed the chaotic mess, ready to leave and avoid any further drama. He pressed his lips together tightly, and then suddenly called out, "I'm sorry." I stopped, frowning at him. "Sorry," he repeated. "I did hide it from you. I was upset because my stepson had gotten into a fight. Clara suggested we go hiking to lift my spirits, and I went along. When she fell, I called the emergency services. I didn't want to meet you because I was afraid you would get the wrong idea." He stood up straight, his jawline tight. Most of his clothes were soaked, steam rising from the fabric. His palm was already blistering, several large yellow bubbles forming from the burn. He looked utterly embarrassed and disheveled. "Leo, what are you doing?" a sharp voice shouted from behind me. I turned to see Clara, her face a mask of fury, sprinting towards us from a distance. For a moment, I was taken aback. It had been a very long time since I had seen such a powerful emotion on her face. She was wearing a burgundy suit, an outfit she reserved for her most formal and important negotiations, which meant she had rushed over from a significant meeting at work. I remembered a time when I had gotten into a minor car accident and called her. Even then, she had insisted on finishing her negotiation before coming to the hospital. Clara's furious gaze swept over the messy ground, then landed on Mark. Biting her lip, she walked step by step towards him. She looked up quietly at the embarrassed yet upright man standing before her, then gently took his burned hand and pulled him close, sheltering him under her coat. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" she asked softly. Mark looked down, trying hard to force a smile for her. His lips moved, but no sound came out, though a hint of redness crept into his eyes. Clara's eyes reddened as well, and she whispered, "Don't be sad, Mark. Don't be sad. Remember what you told me? A light boat has passed 10,000 mountains. Your troubles are over, completely over. Nothing is left that's worth a single tear from you." Throughout this entire exchange, Clara didn't look at me once. I took out my phone and calmly snapped a few pictures of them together. The sharp click of the shutter was crisp and loud in the tense silence. Mark suddenly stepped back, a look of regret and panic on his face, as if he had just remembered my presence. He started apologizing to me, trying to explain. "I forgot. I didn't mean to." He couldn't finish his sentence because I just looked at him with an indifferent expression. "You don't need to say anything," Clara interrupted him firmly. She turned to face me, and in an instant she was back to being the calm, collected, top-tier lawyer I knew. "Leo, let's handle this later. We're right next to your university. There are tons of students coming and going. Causing a scene here doesn't look good for you." She then eyed the mess on the ground. "Besides, bullying a hard-working person. Do you find any sense of fun in that?" I looked at her, my voice cold and steady. "So, you know that lots of my students come through here, huh? Then, as my wife, being publicly cozy with another man, is that thrilling for you? Clara's gaze hardened, a mixture of shock and anger flashing in her eyes. After all, I had always been gentle, forgiving, and yielding in our relationship. She had never seen this side of me before. To be honest, neither had I. "Even though right now," I continued, my voice low, "I have every right to strike both of you. I have no intention of letting anyone brand me as the bad guy." I turned and asked Mark, who was silently trying to clean up the mess. "Mark, since you're not speaking up, is that what you're planning?" He frowned, then slowly lifted his chin, saying loudly, "Enough! Quit arguing, it was me! I knocked it over myself, okay?" He looked at Clara with a mix of frustration and heartache. "Clara, please take your husband and go. Don't interfere with my business. I won't have any more dealings with you, so please don't come back." Nearby patrons began to gather, drawn by the commotion. "What happened here? What a mess." "Mark, is someone bothering you?" "Who? Who dares to mess with Mark? Count me in if they do." All at once, a variety of unfriendly looks landed on me. Clara gritted her teeth, grabbed my hand, and pulled me towards the parking lot. As we walked, I passed a group of familiar students carrying basketballs. They grinned as they greeted me. "Hey, Professor Thomas." I nodded back with a forced smile. "Hey there." In the parking lot, I didn't say another word to her. I calmly walked to my car and got in. Trees flew by as I drove down the highway, a cascade of emotions washing over me in waves. I gave myself half an hour to process everything: anger, pain, acceptance, and finally a cold calmness. Then I turned the steering wheel and headed straight for the bank. Clara and I have a joint account where all of our salaries, bonuses, and other earnings are deposited. When we first opened it, she had joked, "You always say I'm not expressive enough. Well, this account is in your hands. I'll just keep the money flowing in. Is that expressive enough for you?" While I work at the university, over the years I've published several psychology books in my spare time, and the royalties have been substantial. The account's balance had grown to exceed $18 million. The bank clerk looked at me with a puzzled expression and informed me that the account had been frozen due to a bail default. "You didn't know?" she asked. A chill spread through me as I asked slowly, "When did this happen?" "2 months ago," she replied. 2 months ago. That was right after Clara had gotten out of the hospital. I had been completely exhausted from taking care of her while she had a high fever for a week. But while I was boiling over with worry, she was already making calculated moves to secure our assets in preparation for a divorce. I found it both ironic and comical. On my way to the bank, I had regretted acting too hastily, not securing an exit strategy for myself before showing my hand. It turned out she had been playing me all along. Once a woman's heart moves on, she can be utterly ruthless. By the time I got home, the sky was pitch black. Clara was dressed in casual clothes, sitting on the couch and sipping tea as if nothing had happened. She gave me a quick glance. "I sent Sam to my mom's. Let's lay everything out on the table." I sat down opposite her, watching her in silence. She took a slow sip of her tea before she began. "I had planned to do this a little later. I felt a bit reluctant. I wanted you and him to enjoy a little more happy family time. But since you chose to create a scene today, I'll just have to go along with it." She looked at me directly. "Leo, I've fallen for someone else. It's time for a divorce." I was so calm that I even managed a slight smile. "Clara, can you tell me, what is it about him that you love so much? Enough to betray 10 years of our life together, enough to abandon me and our child?" She frowned slightly. "If you insist on knowing—" She paused, then spoke slowly, her tone calm and sincere. "Over the past few years, because of my work, I've seen far too much deceit and ugliness in marriages. I had pretty much lost my ability to see love and marriage clearly. But then I met him. I realized that there are still men like him in the world. Just out of love and responsibility, he gave up the best years of his life without a second thought. He brought a spark of life into my dull, suffocating existence. You ask what I love about him? I've asked myself that a million times, too. It's because he's resilient, he's responsible, and he's dependable. Life has thrown so many hardships his way, yet he stands tall, unsoiled by the muck. And every cold night he hands me a hot bowl of soup." As she finished, her face was alive with emotion, as if she had managed to move even herself with her own words. The room fell silent. After a long moment, I clicked my tongue. "So, your aunt's soup wasn't hot enough? You had to go outside to find that tempting taste?" Clara's expression instantly turned cold. "Leo, you are a self-serving egoist. You could never understand this kind of love." I nodded. "Fair enough. A divorce it is. You leave with nothing." A look of mockery flickered across her face. "First, there's no legal precedent for a spouse leaving with nothing. Second, I haven't actually done anything with Mark. Legally, I'm not even at fault here." I stared at her, speechless for a moment. Has a person really changed this much? So ruthless, as if a completely different soul had suddenly taken possession of her body. Clara seemed to know what I was thinking and scoffed. "There's no need to act like this. There are no feelings left between us, so a divorce is the natural next step. After I fell and was waiting for rescue in the mountains, everything became clear to me." Life is too short to tiptoe around and not pursue love. Even if I'm blamed and scorned for it, I need to truly live for myself for once." She looked at me, her eyes like chips of ice. "Leo, don't forget what I do for a living. I have plenty of tricks up my sleeve. It's just a matter of whether I choose to use them against you." I chuckled lowly. "Haven't you used them on me already? The sneaky move to freeze our bank accounts? Doesn't that desecrate the purity of your great love?" Clara glanced at me and said flatly, "It looks like you've checked the accounts. It was just a routine procedure to avoid complications during the divorce process. I've already drafted the divorce agreement. I get the money and the child. You get the house, and the remaining loan on it is your problem. Considering my financial contributions to this family, this is more than fair." Bang! I slammed a heavy vase onto the floor near her feet. Shards of ceramic flew through the air, and one cut her forehead. She hurriedly covered the wound with her hand, her eyes wide with alarm. Blood began to seep through her fingers. "You're crazy," she yelled, a mix of shock and anger in her voice. Staring at the blood dripping from her hand, she swiftly grabbed her car keys and dashed out of the house without a backward glance. I slowly sat back down on the couch, picked up the teapot, and poured myself a cup of tea. In just 3 days, my entire life had been turned upside down. Leaving the bank earlier, I had realized that Clara was finally using all those well-practiced legal tricks on me. I guess I was more unlucky than most husbands in my position. Not only was I facing emotional betrayal, but my wife was a professional divorce lawyer. Over the years, she had become cold, calculating, and driven purely by self-interest. If I allowed myself to get lost in useless pain and sadness, I would end up with absolutely nothing. I needed to deal with this situation her way. Before heading home, I picked up Sam from my mother-in-law's house and dropped him off to stay with his Go teacher, a man he was very familiar and comfortable with. Silently, I drank tea, cup after cup. Outside, at some point, a bright moon had risen, hanging silently in the sky. After a while, I picked up my phone. It buzzed with a new message from Clara. It was a photo. In the picture, her forehead was bandaged, and she was lying with her eyes closed on a man's lap. Their hands were tightly intertwined. A line of text was written below the image. "Since you don't appreciate her, I feel no guilt. You pushed me to finally say yes to her." It was both a notification and a blatant provocation. Those who survive life's hardest challenges have seen all kinds of ugliness. How could they possibly be just a clean, tall stalk of lotus in the mud? Mark had deliberately knocked over that pot of hot soup this afternoon. He had stopped me before I could leave, apologized, and then called Clara. It was all a coordinated plan. Clara sees benefits and advantages very clearly, but she often misses the nuances of human nature. I whispered to myself as I retrieved the shredded pieces of the diagnosis report from the bin and fed them into the shredder again, piece by piece. The steady buzzing noise settled my heart. Yes, I was facing a so-called wonderful husband and a top-notch divorce attorney. But I was determined to fight. A divorce was now certain, but I would keep my son and our money, and I would make sure this pair of star-crossed lovers was tied together for the rest of their lives. There would be no smooth sailing away from this. There are mountains ahead, and higher ones still beyond them. I officially turned down Clara's divorce terms. As a professional divorce lawyer, the last thing she wanted was for her own divorce to end up in court. If it did, it would signify that she had failed to negotiate a settlement, hurting her professional image. I wasn't in a rush. Well, maybe a little, but not as much as they were. To Clara, Mark was a paragon of virtue, but if he made any move on her before their relationship was formalized by our divorce, he would lose face and tarnish his carefully crafted public image. So he had to play hard to get and act morally upright when it was necessary. Clara, on the other hand, couldn't do anything that would make her appear to be at fault during the critical pre-divorce period. This meant that both of them had to hold back. At most, she could only visit his stall for a bowl of lamb soup during her nightly runs. Lamb soup. I held the steaming cup of tea in my hands, watching the soft snow falling outside my window. The doctor had explicitly told me that ALS patients should keep warm and avoid high-purine foods, as they accelerate the disease's progression. High-purine foods include things like animal organs. After a week of staying away, presumably at her mother's, Clara returned. When she walked in, I was in the living room, tidying up boxes. She had a small bandage on her forehead. She said nothing, went straight to the bedroom, and soon came out with a packed suitcase. She gave me a sidelong glance and spoke coldly. "I was planning to leave the house to you, but you've drained our relationship dry with your actions. So now, we'll just follow the law. The bank accounts are frozen, and our main joint asset is this house. Do you want to sell it and split the money, or just give me the equivalent value in cash?" I tossed a photo album into a nearby cardboard box and chuckled. "What? Has Mark got his eyes on this house now?" Clara sneered. "Do you think everyone is as money-focused as you are? Mark hasn't mentioned a single word about money to me, so don't insult him." She then noticed what I was doing, frowned, and picked up the album from the box. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Throwing out the trash," I replied calmly. "You?" Her face contorted with anger, but it quickly froze. She knew that album well. It contained all the photos of us from our college days, from the time she secretly took pictures of me to when we first met, and then fell in love. I used to keep it in a safe, telling her it was for us to look back on when we were old. Without a word, I expressionlessly took the album from her hand and tossed it into the box. There was a sudden thud in the quiet room. "Not leaving yet? Don't you have a run scheduled?" I reminded her. She stood there, her expression grim, silent for a long moment. Then she turned decisively, tossing back a cold comment over her shoulder. "Hiding Sam won't work. He's still my son, and being with me will ensure his future. I will never give up on him." With that, she slammed the door and was gone. Half an hour later, I got up, dusted my hands, and took a deep breath. Everything related to her was now packed and ready for the trash. Those once precious memories of our youth. That's all they were now. Just as I was reflecting on this, my phone rang. A laid-back young man's voice came through the speaker. "Were you looking for me?" I looked at the young man sitting in front of me, blowing bubbles with his gum. He had purple hair, a lip ring, and eyes that held a mismatched, defiant look. He was clearly trying to project a cool, tough image, but if you looked closer, you could see he was wearing a thin cotton coat in the middle of a snowstorm. The sleeves were worn thin, and the zipper had been crudely sewn back on with black thread, looking like his own handiwork. I got straight to the point. "You're Alex, Mark's stepson." He looked at me but didn't speak. I pulled out a stack of cash and handed it to him. "My wife is leaving me for him. I need your help." "Deal," he said, grabbing the money with surprising speed. I was taken aback by his quick agreement. "You're not even going to ask any questions? You just believe me like that?" "What's not to believe?" he said, still chewing his gum with an air of indifference. "After all, he's the one who raised you," I probed. Alex spat the gum out in a perfect arc. "It's less about him caring for me and my mom," he said, a hint of ridicule in his eyes, "and more about his enjoyment of that public image." I sized him up again and pulled out more money. He snatched it just as briskly and continued. "I started piano lessons when I was 4, and all the fees my mom had saved up for me went straight to the Red Cross. All for some newspaper interview where he could claim that other kids couldn't even afford to eat, so we weren't in as much need. Do you know how my mom died? Infected bed sores. Sure, he took care of her, but only just enough to keep up appearances. You say your wife is infatuated with him? That doesn't surprise me. He always attracts a fool or two. But someone like you, that's new. When Alex left, clutching the cash, he asked, "So, I just need to find a way to get him to push for your wife's divorce? It's that simple." I nodded. As simple as that. Deal? Just getting a divorce wouldn't be enough. It had to be a good one for me. I had to tackle the problem from both ends. The next day, in the light snow, I went back to Mark's lamb soup shop. Mark was kneeling in the snow, carefully tying an old man's shoelaces. A cane lay beside them. The old folks nearby were giving him thumbs up. "A daughter would be blessed to marry a man like you," one of them said. Mark stood up, smiling warmly. "Who'd even consider someone like me?" Our eyes met, and he tensed slightly. He said, "Clara told me that if you dared to come after me, she would—" I cut him off. I looked down, and when I looked back up, I had twisted my face into a mask of seething anger. "Mark, what did you mean by that message you sent me? Are you two together now? Aren't you afraid I'll expose you and ruin your reputation?" Mark squinted at me for a moment, then just sighed and smiled. "I used to think college professors were untouchable, but now I've realized they're just like anyone else you'd find on the street." He looked at me with a mixture of pity and understanding. "How you see the world is defined by your own heart." I did agree to be with her. After all, when a woman offers you her whole heart, it's a moving gesture. Clara is incredible. She deals with so much and gets nothing but coldness from home. You really don't know what you have, but I'm not what you think. Even though I agreed, I would never take advantage of her while she's still married. I am who I am. If she comes, I'll be here. If she doesn't come, I'll still be here. "That's all," I shouted. "Don't think I don't know what you're after. You just want her money. Why else would she be fighting for our assets before divorcing me?" He laughed, not even bothering to argue. "Everyone knows money means nothing to me. I've had rich women chasing me for 13 years. I'm only moved by sincerity." I sneered sarcastically. "Really? If she loves you so much, why doesn't she just divorce me and marry you right now? It shows she values money more than she values you." Mark's face darkened. "Her sincerity is clear to me." I laughed with satisfaction. "Sincerity? Then have her leave without a cent. If she really loves you, she'll divorce me without taking any of the money. Otherwise, it's just an excuse, a charade." Mark's face twitched, and he pressed his lips together tightly, watching me. "What if she does?" he challenged. I arrogantly declared, "If she does, I will personally deliver a gift at your wedding. I will let everyone know that even I, the ex-husband, am moved by your profound love. Mark, your public image will be even more dazzling and grand." As I spoke with spirited conviction, I saw Mark's eyes start to light up. I knew it. His endorphins and dopamine were getting ready to explode. The city was hit by a snowstorm for a few days, and the traffic was a complete mess. Mark had to close his shop temporarily. But for two people so deeply in love, no snowstorm could possibly keep them apart. Clara would brave the cold and snow for half an hour every day after work, claiming she just needed to have a bowl of lamb stew at Mark's place. Their meetings, made more challenging by the weather and distance, became more thrilling and heart-stirring for them. Clara would sit at the small table in his home while Mark busied himself in the kitchen, cooking just for her. They would share knowing smiles, a cozy, heartwarming scene. I saw all of this from a camera. A few days ago, Alex had sent me a receipt, asking for reimbursement. When I asked what for, he said impatiently, "I can't be bothered to tell you their story. I just bought a camera. You can watch for yourself. It's my dad's place. I can do what I want." I paused for a second and then agreed. Clara, who was usually so sharp and perceptive, seemed to lose her edge around Mark, like a fire spreading through a dry field. Know your enemy and keep the upper hand. And anyway, I was just using their own tactics against them. One day, while they were enjoying their cozy time together, one focused on her soup, the other idly watching her, Alex suddenly burst in. He frowned and said bluntly, "So, you're the woman everyone's been talking about." Their smiles froze. Mark quickly tried to explain, and Clara insisted she was just there for the soup. Alex scoffed. "Coming all the way out here every day in this cold, just for soup? Can't live without it, huh? I thought the neighbors were just making stuff up. Why are you so worked up about it? If you two are together, just admit it. It's just a guy and a girl thing." He eyed Clara suspiciously. "Are you running some kind of scam?" Clara's face darkened. "I'm a lawyer." "So, are you married?" Alex pressed. Clara went pale. "I'm just here for the soup." Alex started making a scene. "Oh, I see. You're having an affair. You already have a husband, and yet you're still out here playing around." He moved as if to shove her out the door, but Mark intervened, trying to calm him down. The door was left open, and with everyone cooped up from the snow, plenty of neighbors gathered to watch the drama unfold. People started chiming in. "Hey, Mark, don't let yourself be taken for a fool. Scammers these days look just like normal people. Remember that woman a few years ago? You thought she was just a good Samaritan until her husband came and raised hell. Don't fall for it again." Mark chuckled and tried to clarify that she was really just a visitor and that Alex had misunderstood. After that incident, Clara, worried about her reputation, stopped visiting every day. Even when she did, she was sneaky about it. Their longing for each other grew, and each meeting became more intense. A single glance would hold a universe of unspoken emotion. I sent Clara a revised version of the divorce papers. Her response was a text with 3 words, "In your dreams, ... One day, on the camera feed, I saw Mark telling Clara that he was leaving the city. Clara was shocked and asked why. Mark forced a smile. "Alex is older now, and this house was left to him by his mother. It's not right for me to stay here. I don't have any family here, so I'll go back to my hometown. My aunt set me up with a widow. She's in her 40s, but I guess that's all I can hope for." "No, someone like that doesn't deserve you," Clara said, stubbornly biting her lip. "You can't marry anyone else. You need to marry me." Mark tousled her hair and sighed softly. "You have a husband. I, Mark, will not be the one to break up a family. Clara, let's just leave it as an if only." Clara pressed her face to his hand and softly insisted, "Mark, wait for me. I will get the divorce. You don't understand. I'm just holding out for a better settlement for our future." Mark closed his eyes in pain, then suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "Aren't you a divorce lawyer? Why can't you get a simple divorce? You claim you make millions a year, so why are you fighting over money? I don't care about it. I just want true love. Is money really more important to you than I am? If it is, then you should leave. You're not worthy of my true feelings." That night, Clara texted me, "The house is yours. I'll take the money and our son." I replied, "I want both. Don't overreach." "Then we'll see who holds out longer," she retorted. A few nights later, Clara showed up on the camera feed again. Mark had just finished a shower. His hair was wet, and he was bare-chested in the warmth of his small home. He was all firm muscles and glistening beads of water. Without saying a word to Clara, he kept serving her soup and rice. Clara blushed deeply, her eyes glued to him. She even tried to hold his hand, but he gently brushed her off. "Clara, this is the last time I'll cook for you. Next month I'm going back home to meet someone. You don't need to come here anymore." That night, Clara sat silently in our living room for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "The house and the money are yours. I'll take our son." I paused. "Let Sam choose who he wants to stay with." All right. You said it. No takebacks. Clara was sure she would win this. I gazed out at the clear sky that followed the snow, feeling a slight tug of anxiety in my heart. I wasn't confident about Sam's choice. He was a prodigy who started reading at 3, learned chess at 5, and was winning titles by 7. He was different from other kids. He never threw tantrums or demanded attention. Even though I was his primary caregiver, he wasn't especially attached to me. I teach psychology, so I know about cases like this. Such gifted children, while having advanced mental capabilities, often lag in their emotional needs and expression. To him, me, Clara, the nanny, none of us were that different. I had left Sam with his chess teacher, and on each visit he was distant, wholly absorbed in the game. On the day of Sam's big competition, I dropped him off and then headed to the university for a lecture. By the time I got back, he had already swiftly beaten his opponent and was in the middle of giving an interview to a group of reporters. I spotted Clara and my mother-in-law in the crowd. My mother-in-law was holding Sam's hand, grinning from ear to ear. Clara was chatting away to the cameras. She had gained a lot of fame from a celebrity divorce case when her client realized she was the mother of a child prodigy and decided to trust her with the case. She had been handling all of Sam's interviews ever since, a strategy that brought her a continuous stream of high-profile clients. After the interview, Clara whispered something to my mother-in-law before walking toward me. "Leo," she said, "for the sake of our years together, I've given up on the money and the house. Of course, this money means a lot to you, but for me, it's just a year's salary. Sam is better off with me than with you." I clenched my teeth and forced a smile. "Has Sam chosen you?" She smirked slightly, moving aside to reveal Sam getting into the car with his grandmother. "What do you think?" I froze, my nails almost digging into my palms. Suddenly, the car door opened again, and Sam got out, carrying his backpack. His grandma was frantically calling after him. He walked steadily towards me, looking like a little adult, and said, "I just got my backpack from Mom's car. Dad, you're late." Holding back my excitement, I replied slowly, "Yeah, sorry, I didn't expect you to win so fast." Clara looked furious and hissed, "Sam, go with Mom. I've already lined up a national coach for you." Sam's face was calm. "But aren't you and Dad getting a divorce? So I can't go with you and Grandma." He took my hand. "Let's go, Dad. I need to get back quickly. I have another competition tomorrow." I lifted my head slightly. "All right, son." Clara stood there, her face a picture of disbelief and rage. In the car, I tried to suppress my shock and excitement as I asked, "Sam, do you really understand what it means that your mom and I are getting a divorce?" Sam, sitting in the back seat, replied in a steady yet childish voice, "Yeah, I do." "Are you upset?" I asked. He answered, "My teacher says you should never be sad about the empty spaces you've lost on the board." My eyes suddenly welled up with tears. I had always thought he didn't understand love or feelings. I was wrong. Just because he didn't express them didn't mean he didn't understand. For a skilled player like him, he always focused his energy on the present. When the environment worked for him, he didn't get too involved emotionally. But once it changed, he could judge the situation and make a decision instantly. My son, Sam, is truly remarkable. When Mark once again appeared shirtless in front of Clara, she finally lost control. She was already quite open about that sort of thing, and in the humid, suggestive atmosphere of his small kitchen, she began taking off her clothes one by one. Then she moved towards him, slowly slipping her hand into his waistband. I turned off the camera feed. But Alex wouldn't let it go, messaging me, "Your wife has been in that room for a whole day and night. Want me to help you catch them?" "No need," I replied. "Aren't you mad? Do you really want these two lovebirds to fly off together?" "You don't get it," I typed back. "They need to be together for me to get my revenge." 2 days later, Clara and I went to the Civil Affairs office to finalize our divorce. The house, the money, and Sam all stayed with me. Clara walked away with absolutely nothing, yet she looked refreshed and invigorated. Well, after holding out for so many months, getting some action probably felt like rain after a long drought. As we walked out of the building, she shot me a bond glance. "Leo, you think you've won. Little do you know my firm is bringing in new partners next year, which will double my shares. The money you fought so hard for doesn't even match a year's salary for me. As for Sam, he's small and doesn't understand now. Once he's older, he'll know who is really helping him. Do you think you can hold on to him then?" As she delivered her last words, she suddenly stumbled and fell. She awkwardly got back up, checking her shoes. I watched her silently and smiled. "Congratulations. I hope you live to enjoy it." She frowned, ready to reply, but I turned and walked away. Not long after, Alex barged in with a few friends while the pair were, let's say, otherwise occupied. He snapped photos and threatened to start a fight. Clara had to use her last $300,000 to buy their silence. Mark, spooked, insisted that they get married immediately with a big celebration, or else those thugs might come back and start more trouble. Clara mortgaged her shares in the law firm, borrowing $5 million. Part of that money went towards a 20% down payment on a house, and the rest was spent on a grand wedding. Before the event, Mark messaged me smugly, "Does your offer still stand?" I replied, yes. On their wedding day, a news article exploded online. "Famous divorce lawyer gives up everything for love." The comments poured in. "Wow, this is so touching. For love, she gave up her life's work." Wasn't this the model husband from that old news story? He finally overcame his troubles and found love. Yeah, and she has morals. She got divorced first before finding new love. You can't complain about that. But the ex-husband might feel bitter. Bitter? I'm jealous. He got the house and the money, and he got rid of someone who doesn't love him. Isn't that freeing? Either way, a skilled lawyer giving up her expertise and fortune for love. That's got to be true love. That day, at the peak of the wedding celebration, Mark, full of pride, passionately declared, "With our sails set, we have overcome all obstacles." The guests cheered, truly wishing the newlyweds well, including me. Half a year later, while I was driving Sam to his chess lesson, I got stuck in traffic right outside a hospital. Through the window, I saw Clara and Mark. They were sitting by the roadside flower beds, holding a medical report, both looking completely dazed. Suddenly, Mark leaped to his feet and roared, "The same! No mistake! Why is my luck so rotten?" He shouted and then ran off, looking lost and broken. Clara didn't even look up. She stayed perfectly still, staring at her feet. Before long, Alex suddenly appeared. He walked quickly over to Clara, grabbed her by the collar, and gave her a hard shove. She fell to the ground with no strength to fight back. An angry Alex yelled, "You promised me $20,000 a month. You're 2 months behind. Do you want to see those photos and videos go viral?" Clara slowly climbed back up, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and said softly, "I'm out of money. I won't pay you anymore. Do whatever you want." Alex snapped back, "Out of money? Aren't you a partner at a top firm? Don't you get dividends? Who are you trying to fool?" Clara looked up quietly, gazing at the sky. "I'm sick. ALS. As soon as my partners heard, they pulled my shares. The money barely covered the $5 million loan. I can't work now. There's no income." Alex was in disbelief. "You're really broke?" Clara gave a sarcastic laugh. "If I weren't sick, that cash would be nothing to me." But her words trailed off as tears streamed down her face. Suddenly, the car window rolled down. I turned and saw Sam looking out, calling, "Mom?" Seeing us, Clara's body shook. Then she dropped her head into her hands and sobbed. "Sam! Leo, I'm sick. I miss you guys so much. "Mom, your collar," Sam said. Clara, her face wet with tears, looked confused. "What?" "There's some dog poop on it," Sam replied, and rolled the window back up. Outside, Clara's face was a mask of utter despair and helplessness. For a long while after that, I purposely avoided any more updates about Clara and Mark. Once the wheels of fate start turning, the end is already set. Then, one day, Sam and I had just finished trying out a new dish the housekeeper had made. We were sitting in the living room having a chat. I had changed how I was raising Sam. Besides teaching him Go, I wanted him to experience more of life. He thought for a moment, and then asked, "Dad, do you feel lonely?" I almost laughed, but then I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do. I wish you would spend more time with me." He thought for a moment and agreed. After that, we stopped going straight to our separate rooms after dinner. Instead, we would talk and watch some TV together. One evening, Mark's face appeared on the news, and I froze. He looked like a completely different person. His face was worn and haggard, his eyes tired, his cheekbones sharp, his lips thin and harsh. He was complaining to a reporter, "I have such a tough life. First I had a paralyzed wife, and now this one with ALS. I hope society can help me more." The camera then switched its focus to a simple bed in a Spartan room. A woman lay there, staring blankly at the ceiling. It was Clara, but she was so skinny she was almost unrecognizable. The reporter looked at the camera, her face full of emotion. "Regardless, Mark's spirit is admirable. He married his wife for love, and she gave up everything for him. He has not abandoned her, despite the hardship." John stared at the TV. "Dad, I want to see Mom." I agreed. 2 days later, when we found the address from the TV station, I was taken aback. It was a run-down building, almost a safety hazard, far worse than Mark's old place. Holding Sam's hand, we went up to the second floor. The door was wide open, but no one was around. The furniture was shabby, and the place was messy, with junk piled everywhere. Just as I started to doubt if we were in the right place, a low murmur came from a bed in the corner. Clara's eyes were wide open, staring straight at us. Holding Sam's hand, we walked over. Her eyes reddened, tears flowed down her cheeks, and she made garbled, unintelligible sounds. I stood there, watching her. Her eyes were sunken. Her body was just skin and bones. The lively, bright eyes she once had were now dull and cloudy. Her hair was choppy, as if someone had carelessly cut it with a pair of dull scissors. Her clothes were damp, with bits of vegetables and rice stuck to them. I couldn't believe this was the same Clara who had once been almost obsessive about her appearance. She looked at me without blinking, her eyes filled with pain, sadness, regret, and despair. I steadied myself. "Sam wanted to see you, so I brought him." Sam took a bundle of money from his backpack. "Mom, this is my New Year money. I want to give it to you," he said seriously. "What good will that do her? She still relies on me." Mark sneered as he walked in, snatching the money from Sam's hand and quickly counting it. 20,000, he said, glaring at me, his voice bitter. "Isn't that a bit low? She left you with over 20 million. I looked at him quietly. "What about the 5 million you two had? Didn't you get a house?" Mark scoffed. "That house? We only put down 20% for the mortgage. She can't move, so how could I possibly pay for it? I sold it and bought this place, at least so we'd have a roof over our heads. The street subsidy barely covers our living costs. Leo, since she's your kid's mom, shouldn't you give back some of the money?" I laughed. "Isn't it enough to live on? You once claimed that money didn't matter to you. Now you're broke and asking me for cash? If our positions were reversed, would you spare even a cent for me?" I turned to Clara, who was silently crying, and said calmly, "You once swore on the phone that you would stay faithful for love, And you did. You idealized Mark for sticking by his disabled wife. And now you're enjoying the exact same treatment. Clara, you got what you wanted. So why the tears? Clara began to tremble violently, letting out a long, mournful wail. I took Sam's hand and left without looking back. Driving along the road, I was silent for a bit before asking, "Sam, do you think Dad was wrong to treat Mom like that?" Sam shook his head. "No. The teacher says that once you make a move on the board, you can't regret it. You have to be clear when you place your pieces, or one wrong move could cost you the entire game." I breathed out a long sigh, and suddenly remembered something. Nervously, I said, "Son, when you grow up, don't become one of those guys who chases after someone for love, willing to do anything. It's a rough path." For some reason, I get the feeling he has the potential for that kind of intense devotion. John looked puzzled. "Why would you need to go to a crematorium to chase someone?" I was at a loss for words, unsure how to explain the idiom. Sam seemed to figure it out on his own. "Oh, I get it. Like Mom, right? Don't worry, Dad. I'm the player." Player? I didn't quite understand. Sam's voice was calm and certain. "A player is always responsible for every move they make. Once I've made a move, there's no changing it." Though his words left me a bit confused, I trusted him. After all, my son Sam is a pro.